Shabbat Shalom, Hebrew family and guests. Shabbat Shalom to all of you. Greeting to the 144,000 and the 12 tribes with them that are scattered into the four corners of the earth because of slavery and oppression, because of the sins of our fathers and worshiping other gods, and those who are now turning back to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob as true Hebrews, bloodline relatives of the true Hebrews, scattered into the earth. Greetings. Greetings also to those who are not of the bloodline, but whose lineage, by no fault of their own, is in other areas of the Gentiles, but who also, through faith, in the line of the tribe of Judah, who we call Yahushua, who Christians call Jesus Christ, through faith in that line of the tribe of Judah, have joined with the scattered nation of the Hebrews. Greetings. Blessings upon those that work in the healthcare field, trying every day to save lives. Blessings upon those that do the menial task of picking up garbage for us to keep our streets and our sidewalks clean. Blessings also upon those that do a menial task of making deliveries for us to make sure that when we walk into a supermarket or a deli, food is there. And when we want something to eat and we don't feel like going out, they'll bring it to you. Blessings upon them. Blessings also upon those trying to deliver boys and girls and men and women and children who are the victims of pornography, of also child pornography, of prostitution and child prostitution and child molestation and pedophilia, which goes on every day, probably every hour of every day in the United States, in Canada, in all the countries of the earth, and who oftentimes are also victims of human trafficking and sex slavery operations. Blessings upon those victims and double curses on the perpetrators. Finally, blessings upon those that are homeless tonight. 600,000 human beings in the United States and millions around the world in the same or worse conditions. Blessings upon them, for theirs is the kingdom. And blessings upon those who are trying to help. Greetings also, brothers and sisters in the chat, Brother Sosa, Brother Kelly, Brother Righteous, Sister Isha. Blessings upon all of you. Tonight we begin a new study. And we had just completed the study of Hosea, as you are aware. We did the 14 chapters of Hosea, and what a blessing that was. What an eye-opener that was. Well, blessings, brother. I did not see you there, Brother Walter. Blessings upon you too, and greetings. We start tonight the prophecy of Joel or Yoel. Now, the Most High Yah is the translation of Ya'al, is the Most High Yah. Yah, the Most High. That's his name. That's Ya'al's name. Isn't that amazing? Yakoba, welcome. So before we get into Joel, I want to also say in the title of this particular lesson tonight, I was impressed to entitle it The Intro to Yael. How did I say it? A prophetic bundle of dynamite. A small prophetic bundle of dynamite. That's what it was titled. Ya'al, a small prophetic bundle of dynamite. Why do I say that? Because what we're going to discover in Ya'al, we're going to see the various attacks on Israelites as we were in the land and as we're going to be in the land, both. We're going to see the deliverance in the first resurrection. We're going to see the outpouring of the Spirit on the Israelites, both the early rain and the latter rain. We're going to see the second resurrection and the final judgment. all in 3 small chapters. They divided it, whoever did the translation, William Tyndale or whoever it was, they divided that into 3 sections called chapters, but really it's a small little few pages is the prophecy of Joel. So in those small pages that I just told you, everything I just told you is in there. So that there's so much power and prophecy in there, and just those small pages covers literally. Joel covers, I'd say a good 4,000 years of history. Good 4,000 years. So you're going to see it's very powerful. No sound of power. Like, thank you, Barthamon. Let me go over there real quick. I see sound. I don't know what you mean. If I go in and the green light is on in Pal Talk, that means there's sound. So I see sound. I don't know what's going on, but it says sound over there from where I'm sitting at. So I don't know what's going on. But yeah, so I'm not sure what's happening. But it says sound when I go over there. When I see a green light and I see my microphone working, I know there's sound there. So I don't know what's happening. But I just checked. So maybe it's your computer, maybe. But there's sound there. Okay, so as I was saying, it's all of that in there. So just to, and I want to go over some of the prophecies that it covers, especially the 2 resurrections. I want to go over that because Joel covers that, and I want to go over why it's centered in Judah. It's centered in Judah, okay, but it's about all of Israel, but it's centered in Judah. And why would it be centered in Judah? Well, because the attacks that are going to come on the land of Israel are going to come on the area centered in Judah, which is New Jerusalem. Okay, that's the attacks that have come and the attacks that will come. Okay, and it's so, and just saying that, it's just powerful in that sense. So I want to go over both of those resurrections as the Bible outlines them. And so when we go into Joel, that's the introduction to Joel, you will understand what we're dealing with. It's a powerful little, like I said, I think it's appropriately named tonight's lesson, a small bundle of prophetic dynamite. That's Joel. Okay, so it's a lot in there. So we're going to see everything in there. All right. So let us begin. Shabbat Shalom, Brother Holloway, Brother Williams, Brother Hines, Sister Wade, Naviska 23. If I didn't see you all before, Shalom. We started already. Sorry about that. But let's start tonight in a scripture that we have actually hit a few times in the last several weeks. We've actually hit this scripture a few times, and that's Zechariah. We're going back to Zechariah now. So let's go. We did actually a whole study within the last year, the 2020 or 2021, we did a series on Zechariah, and that's also on the website, rawhebrewremnant.org. So you can see it on there, and it'll take you to the YouTube playlist with all of the studies we did chapter by chapter, as we normally do in Zechariah. But this one, Zechariah chapter 1. Now, Zechariah, of course, is a prophet for Judah. And as a prophet for Judah, he's a prophet after the captivity that started with Babylon and ended with the Medes and the Persians. Okay. And they were going back at the end of the 70 years that Jeremiah had prophesied about to rebuild the temple and to rebuild the city of Jerusalem. That was the first rebuilding. Okay, as the Israelites had entered the land, that was the first rebuilding. There would be 2 rebuildings, well, actually, not 1 rebuilding, 2 destructions. But this was the first rebuilding of the temple. Now, in Zechariah, so that's what he's prophesying about. But also, of course, because Zechariah is a prophet, and because all prophecy not only has the application of the time it was there that they lived, but of the future events which are now. We live in the future events. That's where we live right now. From all the words of the Hebrew prophets were written literally thousands of years ago. All of them. Okay. Beginning at Moses and going from Moses all the way to the 1st century, where you had your apostles of the New Testament, the New Covenant, write their letters and epistles, their epistles, and prophetic utterance like Revelation. So from that being the most recent, so all of these prophecies at this point, here we are now in the year 2021. These are thousands of years ago, which is one of the proofs that the Bible is legit, being that these words were uttered. Now they were translated, the latest English translation, before all of the iterations of that, where the first English translation that we are universally understanding is the King James version of 1611. Of course, there were many other English translations before the King James, but the most popular one was the King James, which is 80% the Tyndale Bible. And Tyndale, we know, was martyred by the Catholic Church. He was a Catholic priest that was martyred by the Catholic Church. And then after that, after his martyrdom, some years later, they got together and finished what he started with what we now have as the King James. And that now, being that we're now in the year 2021, that's about 500 years ago, a little over 500 years ago. But they were just translation. The actual words that were written, that they translated, are thousands of years old. They're thousands of years old. So these prophetic utterances go back millennium. Okay. And according to the Bible, now, I'm not going to argue with people about how old time is or when dinosaurs existed or how many millions of years the earth is or all of that. That's for them to argue about. The Bible deals with a 7,000 year period. That's what it deals with. 6,000 years before the first resurrection, and then 1,000 years between the first and the second resurrection. That's what the earth deals with. A 6,000 year period. Okay. And so, and it's divided like this: from Adam's life to Abraham is about 2,000 years. From Abraham to Messiah is about 2,000 years. And from Messiah to the return of Messiah is about 2,000 years. And then when Messiah returns and set up his kingdom, there's 1,000 years, a millennium of rest, like a Shabbat for a millennium Shabbat. Okay, so you have 7,000 years. That's the coverage of this book in terms of the time. Like I said, I'm not arguing or complaining or debating with anybody that wants to say the earth is millions of years old. Scientists say that. That's their business. I have nothing to do with that. I'm just going by what this book tells me. And I don't want y'all to argue with anybody. All that believe in this book and put all of their trust in it. Don't argue with people about what science says and what they want to believe. That's their business. We take this here is by conviction of the Spirit. That's what this is. This is by conviction of the Spirit. This is not by man's measurements. Okay? It's not by man's measurements. It's by conviction of the Spirit. And if that's your conviction, that's your conviction. That's my conviction. So as I've read this book, it's a 7,000 year period that it deals with. Okay? And so we are close to the end, as we know, very close to the end of the 6,000. Very close to the end of the 6,000 year. We're just a few years away. Very few years away from the 6,000 year period coming to an end. Okay? So that's where we're at. So here in Zechariah, we're looking at something that was uttered regarding the end of the 70-year captivity, but it tells us everything we need to know about everything that happened after that. And so let's look at Zechariah chapter 1. I'm going to begin at verse 12, where the angel of Yahweh is talking to his Hebrew Israelite prophet, Zechariah. Okay, so let's take a look at that. Zechariah chapter 1, beginning at verse 12. Then the angel of Yahweh answered and said, O Yahweh of hosts, how long wilt thou not have mercy on Jerusalem and on the cities of Judah, against which thou hast had indignation these 70 years? And Yahweh answered the angel that talked with me with good words and comfortable words. So the angel that communed with me said unto me, Cry thou, saying, Thus saith Yahweh of hosts, I am jealous for Jerusalem and for Zion with great jealousy. And I am very sore displeased with the heathen that are at ease. For I was but a little displeased, and they helped forward the affliction. Therefore, thus saith Yahweh, I am returned to Jerusalem with mercies. My house shall be built in it, saith Yahweh of hosts, and a line shall be stretched forth upon Jerusalem. Cry yet, saying, thus saith Yahweh of hosts, my cities through prosperity shall yet be spread abroad, and Yahweh shall yet comfort Zion, and shall yet choose Jerusalem. Then lifted I up mine eyes, and saw, and behold, 4 horns. And I said unto the angel that talked with me, what be these? And he answered me, these are the horns which have scattered Judah, Israel, and Jerusalem. Now I want you to understand, these 4 horns, and of course we know they're Babylon, Media, Persia, Greece, and Rome. We know that these 4 horns are mentioned among all the many dynasties and empires that have existed on planet Earth over the last 7,000 years, 6,000 years, excuse me. Of all the many dynasties that have existed on Earth, these 4 are mentioned because they have scattered Yah's chosen people, which the Bible tells us he has chosen as Abraham's children, Abraham's chosen seed above all people of the earth. And so because these 4 powers scattered them, that's why they are highlighted. Okay, that's why they are highlighted. All right, more on that in a minute. But let's take a look in Zechariah chapter 1, beginning at verse 19. And I said unto the angel that talked with me, what be these? And he answered me, these are the horns which have scattered Judah, Israel, and Jerusalem. And Yahweh showed me 4 carpenters. Then said I, what come these to do? And he spake, saying, these are the horns which have scattered Judah, so that no man did lift up his head. But these are come to fray them, to cast out the horns of the Gentiles, which lifted up their horn over the land of Judah, to scatter it. And as we know, as I mentioned earlier, those are the 4 winds of Revelation chapter 7 that are being held until the 144,000 are sealed. Okay, these 4 horns, powers, they're being held until the 144,000 are sealed. Now, the interesting thing that I want to bring out here that we're going to talk about in terms of Joel, in terms of the resurrections, is Israel never invaded another country. All the time when Israel went into captivity, it was outside countries or Gentiles or Hamites, in the case of Babylon, invading Israel. Okay, that's a basic premise. So Israel is not like Islam, where it goes and invades all other countries and forces you to convert. It never did that. Israel was promised a specific piece of real estate, a specific piece of geography. Okay, and they went and took that geography. And the reason they took that geography was because for 400 years, the Amorites were performing heinous and vile acts on a land that the Most High had his eye on. Remember what the Most High told Abraham: 400 years you're going to dwell as strangers, because the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet full. And then he explains what those iniquities are in Leviticus chapter 18, which we're not going to go into now. But he explains what they were doing for 400 years in the land. And it was very similar, listen carefully, to what was going on before the flood. And if you look at the reasons why he's going to destroy the Amorites and took that land from them and gave it to his chosen seed and his friend Abraham's seed, chosen seed, that's why you know when he says to Noah, he said, the end of all flesh has come before me, because the earth is corrupt and it's full of violence. Well, that's what was going on in that land. And so and that land was special to him, because he said in Deuteronomy, my eye is always on that land, which leads me to believe, of all places, he said, my eye is on that land, which leads me to believe that the tree of life was once there. And why do I believe that? Because the tree of life is going to go back there. When Jerusalem settles there, it's going to be in that land, and the tree of life is going to be there. Okay. And he said to the Israelites in Deuteronomy, my eye is always on that land, every year, all the time. which is why he's not very happy that Edomites are now occupying it. And he said that in Ezekiel, as we know. He does not happy with Edomites occupying my land. That's what he said. Okay, so that being the case, we are now seeing this basic premise that no matter if the Most High is angry at Israel or if he redeems Israel, whatever case, always Gentiles are attacking Israel in the Bible. They're always coming from outside lands, whether it be Babylon, Media, Persia, Greece, or Rome, or even around them, like the Philistines, or the Moabites, or the Ammonites. They're always coming, or the Syrians, they're always coming at Jerusalem, which is a prelude, a sign of what Joel's going to be dealing with when we talk about these two resurrections. Okay, I just wanted to give you all this backdrop. This is the intro to Joel, a small prophetic dynamite, a small bundle of prophetic dynamite. And so we're going to look at these two resurrections and the implications and what happens just as a general overview so we understand that. And then we're going to Joel that will help us understand what Joel, the process that Joel is showing us in that small bundle of prophetic dynamite. So let's take a look first at, let's see, let me start at John. We're going to start at John, Gospel of John, chapter 5, Gospel of John, chapter 5. Gospel of John, chapter 5, and I'm going to begin at verse 19. I'm going to begin at verse 19, and I'm going down to verse, let's see, 30. Gospel of John, chapter 5, from verse 19 to verse 30. Now, we're dealing with resurrections today, okay? And we're introducing Ya'al, or Joel, all right? So let's take a look, beginning at verse 19. Then answered Yahushua and said unto him, Verily, verily, I say unto you, the Son can do nothing of himself, but what he seeth the Father do. For what things soever he doeth, these also doeth the Son likewise. So again, he reiterates what we already know, which many people don't understand. Messiah does nothing except he has done it at the command of his Father. Okay? He has done nothing. He does nothing without the express command of his Father. Okay. Verse 20. For the Father loveth the Son, and showeth him all things that himself doeth. And he will show him greater works than these, that ye may marvel. For as the Father raiseth up the dead and quickeneth them, even so the Son quickeneth who he will. So the power of resurrection that Messiah has, he got by permission of the Father. And the Father has caused Messiah to be the resurrection. Okay, he is the resurrector. Okay, that the Father has given that to him. Let's continue. For the Father judgeth no man, but hath committed all judgment unto the Son, that all men should honor the Son, even as they honor the Father. He that honoreth not the Son honoreth not the Father which hath sent him. Verily, verily, I say unto you, verily, verily, I say unto you, he that heareth my word and believeth on him that sent me hath everlasting life, and shall not come into condemnation, but is passed from death unto life. Verily, verily, I say unto you, the hour is coming, and now is, when the dead shall hear the voice of the Son of Yahweh, and they that hear shall live. For as the Father hath life in himself, so hath he given to the Son to have life in himself, and hath given him authority to execute judgment also, because he is the Son of Man. Marvel not at this, for the hour is coming in which all that are in the graves shall hear his voice, and shall come forth, they that have done good unto the resurrection of life, and they that have done evil unto the resurrection of damnation. I can of my own self do nothing. As I hear, I judge, and my judgment is just, because I seek not mine own will, but the will of the Father, which has sent me. So he talks about two resurrections. They that have done good, the resurrection of life. and they that have done evil, the resurrection of damnation. And he says, the Father has committed judgment unto him and given him power to resurrect from the dead. And he said, it's not just his judgment, it's the judgment of the Father who sent him. Okay, and that gives you the whole shoot match in terms of the order: Father, the Messiah, and then us. We pray to the Father through Messiah. Okay, we pray to the Father through Messiah, and that understanding gives us more clarity than anyone else on the planet. There are people that don't understand they need to pray in the name of the Messiah. I mean, out of just really sincere ignorance. And the Father will hear the prayer of the sincere heart. They'll still be looking through a glass darkly, though, because they don't yet know his Son, which you have to know. Okay. Once you know the Son, it's his personal invitation, his personal introduction to introduce you to the Father. And now you have a clear path to the Father. And he will answer your prayers through his Son, who he has appointed heir of all things. So he talked about two resurrections. Let's go back now to the book of Revelation, chapter 19. Now, in Revelation chapter 19, now sometimes we have to, how am I going to say this? Sometimes we should understand that the word chapter, whatever, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 18, chapter 19, chapter 20, that was placed there by the translators. Okay? That was placed there by the translators. And in our English culture, when we see chapter 1 and then we see chapter 2, we're expecting almost two different things, right? This is the subject matter of chapter 1, and now you have a different chapter. You have chapter 2, and there's a new subject matter. It's not necessarily the case in Bible study. Sometimes the chapters just put there for the sake of making it more, I guess, orderly, for lack of a better word. But sometimes it doesn't belong there because it's really the same thing. The two sections are really one. Okay, so is the case here. In chapter 19, it really flows into what's called chapter 20. And so chapter 19 from verse 11 goes all the way down to chapter 20, verse 6. I want to say it again. So chapter 19, verse 11 flows all the way down to chapter 20, verse 6. And then you have another thing. And you'll know what I mean when we read it. All right. So really, chapter 19, verse 11 is the beginning of what is the first resurrection and all the events that take place in the first resurrection. Okay. So it starts at chapter 19, verse 11 and goes down to chapter 20, verse 6. All right. And actually, it's all of chapter 19, really. But verse 11 is getting to the nitty gritty, for lack of a better term, the real rubber hits the road of what's getting ready to go down in that first resurrection, which we're going to see in just a few years. Okay. And that's powerful. We're going to see that in just a few years. And we're the only ones on the planet that know and understand that. I just keep saying that because it's true. I mean, it's amazing. We're the only ones on the planet that know and understand it. He's given it to the Hebrews. Okay, let's take a look at Revelation chapter 19, beginning at verse 11. I'm gonna read it in sections. I'm gonna go from verse 11 down to verse 19, just to start us off. And I saw heaven opened, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True, and in righteousness he doth judge and make war. His eyes were as a flame of fire, and on his heads were many crowns. And he had a name written that no man knew but he himself. And he was clothed with a vesture dipped in blood, and his name is called the Word of Yahweh. And the armies which were in heaven followed him upon white horses, clothed in fine linen, white and clean. And out of his mouth goeth a sharp sword, that with it he should smite the nations, and he shall rule them with a rod of iron. And he treadeth the winepress of the fierceness and wrath of Al Shaddai. And he hath on his vesture and on his thigh a name written, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And I saw an angel standing in the sun, And he cried with a loud voice, saying to all the fowls that fly in the midst of heaven, come and gather yourselves together unto the supper of the great Most High, that ye may eat the flesh of kings, and the flesh of captains, and the flesh of mighty men, and the flesh of horses, and of them that sit on them, and the flesh of all men, both free and bond, both small and great. And I saw the beast and the kings of the earth and their armies gathered together to make war against him that sat on the horse and against his army. So you're seeing here a resurrection, and you're seeing Messiah with all the redeemed on one side, and all the wicked that were not saved, that are on the earth, that are some of them on the earth now, on the other side. In fact, majority of them are on the earth now, on the other side. Okay, let's continue. And the beast was taken, and with him the false prophet that wrought miracles before him, with which he deceived them that had received the mark of the beast, and them that had worshipped his image. These were both cast alive into a lake of fire, burning with brimstone. And the remnant were slain with the sword of him that sat upon the horse, which sword proceeded out of his mouth, and all the fowls were filled with their flesh. So let's stop here. So you see a couple of things. First, you see the beast and the false prophet taken. That's not just one person. It appears like it's just one person. It's all the leaders that had the seal of the devil, or the mark of the beast in their foreheads. All of those people. Let me say it again. Because all the ones have the mark in their foreheads are all the leaders. Remember Wednesday night we looked at Daniel chapter 3, and who did Nebuchadnezzar have out there to worship his image? All the leaders of his kingdom, all the important people of his kingdom, the sheriffs, the counselors, the princes, all of the magistrates, all of those people, the leaders of the kingdom were there. Well, here you're going to have all the people that receive the mark of the beast in their foreheads. That's the beast and the false prophet. That is the beast representing the Romish power, the papal power that controls all religious powers of the earth. And it's one of its whores, Protestant Christianity, evangelical Christianity. Okay, that's the beast and the false prophet. It's more than that, but I'm not going to go into it right now. That's as much as we need to know right now. But okay, so it's all Christianity led by Rome. Rome is the beast with the government leadership and all of that received the seal, the mark of the beast in their forehead, and then the religious leaders of all the other religions and denominations that have the seal in their foreheads of the Antichrist, of the beast, mark of the beast. Okay, so that's the beast and the false prophet, and I want you to notice they're cast alive into the lake of fire. There's no coming back from the lake of fire. When you get tossed in the lake of fire, that's it. So in other words, all the religious leaders that are alive today, they're going to be gone forever. There's no second resurrection for them. And I want you to notice Revelation 16 talks about the beast, the dragon, and the false prophet. But here you only see, at this point, you only see the beast and the false prophet. You don't see the dragon yet, who's the one that leads them. You don't see him yet. But these others are cast into the lake of fire. They will not come back from that. There's no second resurrection for them. That's it. Okay? The whole Babylonian system, these are the leaders of it. It will be destroyed. And that's why they will not come back. There's no Babylonian system coming back. That's it. Okay, so then it says in verse 21 about the ones that received the mark in their hands, and the remnant were slain with the sword of him that sat upon the horse, which sword proceeded out of his mouth, and all the fowls were filled with their flesh. More on that later. But here in Revelation chapter 20, which is continuation of what we just read, he's dealt with the beast, he's dealt with the false prophet. Now he's going to deal with the dragon in the first resurrection. Notice what he does. And I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. And he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent, which is called the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years, So devil is placed in a bottomless pit. What is a pit in the Bible? It's representative of what? A grave. So he's put to death, but it's a temporary death. He is going to come back in the second resurrection. But his followers that led this earth in terms of false religion and false worship, they will not come back. That's it right there. Okay, so here, chapter 20, verse 3. And cast him into the bottomless pit, and shut him up, and set a seal upon him, that he should deceive the nations no more, till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled. And after that he must be loosed a little season. And I saw thrones, and they sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Yahushua, and for the word of Yahweh, which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither had received his mark upon their foreheads or in their hands. And they lived and reigned with Messiah 1,000 years. But the rest of the dead lived not again until the 1,000 years were finished. This is the first resurrection. See, it's telling you you're coming to the end of the first resurrection. From what we read in chapter 19 through chapter 20, you can see now it kind of flows together, right? So then you go to verse 6, and blessed and holy is he that hath part in the first resurrection. On such the second death hath no power, but they shall be priests of Yahweh and of Messiah, and shall reign with him 1,000 years. So there you have your first resurrection. That's your 1,000 years. That completes 7,000 years, right? So you have 6,000 years. We're just about finished there. And now you're going to have 1,000-year reign. During that time, the devil is in a grave. And of course, that implies all of the angels with him are in graves. But the leaders of this earth that have received the mark in their foreheads, the mark of the beast, and worshiped his image, and pushed that on others, they will not come back. They are done. Okay, now, second resurrection starts in Revelation chapter 20, verse 7. Okay, Revelation 20. And now you're going to see also, we're going to read from verse 7 down to verse 15, and you'll see why I said there's no coming back once you are thrown into the lake of fire. There's no coming back from that. Right? Watch this. Revelation chapter 20 from verse 7 to verse 15. And when the 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison, second resurrection, and shall go forth to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together to battle, the number of whom is as the sand of the sea. And they went up on the breadth of the earth, they being Gog and Magog. Now, Gog and Magog, we're going to review what that is when we're going to go into Ezekiel in a few minutes and look at this again from Ezekiel's standpoint. And then you're going to see who Gog, if you don't already know, you're going to know who Gog and Magog is. But basically, they're leaders of all the lost people of all time, with Satan at the head. Okay, so let's take a look. It tells you how many there are. There's the sand of the sea. Lots. Billions. Okay, so let's continue. Verse 9. And they went up on the breadth of the earth, because there's billions of them. They went up on the breadth of the earth and compassed the camp of the saints about and the beloved city. So what were they doing? Did we go out and invade these countries and these nations? No, they were resurrected and they came at us. They were resurrected and they came at us. And it says not only the camp, which is the nation that we're in, the land that we're in, but of course it said the beloved city, the New Jerusalem. And again, why would they be attacking Jerusalem? See, they've been doing that. We've seen it. I started off tonight telling you, always Israel is attacked. Israel never leaves its borders to go attack somebody. They're always leaving their borders to attack Israel. Okay, that's been the case, and that's continued to be the case. Sometimes for our punishment, as the Romans did, and sometimes for their destruction, as it is here. Okay, so let's read it from verse 9 down to verse 15. And they went up on the breadth of the earth and compassed the camp of the saints about in the beloved city, and fire came down from Yah out of heaven and devoured them. And the devil that deceived them was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet are. See, the beast and the false prophet was already there before the devil. And he was added to that duo. Let's continue. And shall be tormented day and night forever and ever. And I saw a great white throne, and him that sat on it, from whose face the earth and the heaven fled away, and there was found no place for them. And I saw the dead, small and great, stand before Yah, and the books were open, and another book was open, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged out of those things which were written in the books according to their works. And the sea gave up the dead which were in it. And death and hell delivered up the dead which were in them. And they were judged every man according to their works. And death and hell were cast into the lake of fire. This is the second death. So, verse 15, and whosoever was not found written in the book of life was cast into the lake of fire. So the lake of fire represents the second death. So even though it does, the beast and the false prophet went in there first. They're not coming back from it. They suffered that right away. They are on the beast and the false prophet. You want to tell you something scary? They're on the earth right now. All of the leaders that you see right now, political leaders, religious leaders, business leaders, they're all here. And all of these people, mostly males, mostly Caucasian males, are going into that lake of fire. And they're not coming back. And they're going to actually be there before their master, the devil. And that's the second death. There's no coming back from it. Okay, so here we just saw in Revelation 19 and 20, the first and the second resurrection that Messiah mentioned, that he taught about in John chapter 5. But there's more. So we're talking about Ya'al, Joel, a small bundle of prophetic dynamite. All of this I just read is in there. And it's only 3 chapters. Let's continue. Ezekiel chapter 39. Ezekiel chapter 39 is the first resurrection. Now, the thing, again, let me explain. Let me explain a little. Ezekiel, like all the prophets, are translated from scrolls. So they were scrolls, and the translators who knew Hebrew and Aramaic translated the words of those scrolls into English. And they ordered the scrolls as they thought best. Okay? They ordered them as they thought best. Not always, though, they're in order from left to right so that the events start on your left and go to your right. Or in your case, you're looking at me from here to here, right? It's not always like that. And then this is one of those cases. I mean, I can show you in Daniel, where Daniel chapter 5, Belshazzar is slain in Daniel chapter 5. But then you go to Daniel chapter 7 and 8, and it talks about events that took place while Belshazzar was alive. So that the events of chapter 7 and 8 took place before the events of chapter 5. Because in chapter 5, it records Belshazzar being killed. You understand what I'm saying? So here, chapter 39 is before chapter 38. And you'll see why, because chapter 38 will give you certain language that lets you know that it's the second resurrection. Okay, it will tell you that. Whereas chapter 39 gives you language that indicates there's like an interlude before the final thing, just like between the first and second resurrection, that 1,000-year interlude. It kind of gives you the indication that when you read it. So let's take a look at Ezekiel chapter 39. And we're not going to read the whole thing, 29 verses, but because we're really going for Joel tonight. But I want to show you the similarities to what we just read and why Joel talks about it too, and why this is the first resurrection. So here in Ezekiel chapter 39, beginning at verse 1, we'll read from verse 1 down to verse 7. Yes, from verse 1 down to verse 7. Therefore, thou son of man, prophecy against Gog. And there's the name Gog again, like we saw in Revelation 19 and 20, well, Revelation 20. And say, thus saith the Most High Yahweh, behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal. Now, before we go on, just for those that may not know, I don't want to assume everybody saw all of the Bible studies that we did on this. You might not have. We did a Bible study, obviously, on Ezekiel. We did a whole Bible study in the whole book of Ezekiel. That's also available on the website, rawhebrewremnant.org, for free. You can do it. Thank Isha for doing that website. Praise the Most High. But let's, just for those that don't know, let's find out what the Bible tells us about it says Gog is the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal. So he's a descendant, he's a prince of Meshach and Tubal. That's who Gog is. And then we talked about Magog. We're going to see they're all related. Where do they come from? Who are they on the earth today? Who are they? Wouldn't you want to know that? Let's look. Genesis chapter 10. Table of Nations in Genesis chapter 10, in the beginning. Genesis chapter 10 takes place right after the flood, when Noah and his sons began to spread their seed and populate the earth. All of us come from one of the three sons of Noah originally. Now, of course, they've been mixed, right? But all of us originally come from one of those three men. And geographically speaking, the geography shows where those three men were, where their people developed from. And so you will know who you come from based on your lineage to where the geographic areas of these men were. Are you ready? Genesis chapter 10, let's start at verse 1 and 2. Genesis 10, 1 and 2. Now these are the generations of the sons of Noah: Shem, Ham, Japheth. Unto them were sons born after the flood. So he has three sons: Shem, Ham, Japheth. And as I said, every human being on earth has an origin in one of these men: Shem, Ham, or Japheth. Every human being on earth, according to the 6,000 years that we're talking about here, has an origin in one of Noah's three sons. Okay? Verse 2. The sons of Japheth: Gomer and Magog and Madai and Yavan and Tubal and Meshach and Tiras. So you see Magog in there. You see Tubal in there. Who are these people? Where did they come from? If you look their names up, you will see, for example, Madai is Russia, is what we call today Russia. Yavan is what you call Cyprus, Greece, and Rome, Italy. Tubal, Meshach, Tiras, Magog, all European. Today, that's what we call modern Europe. And who comes from modern Europe? What do we call those people today? Whose origins are in Europe? Because you see the name Magog, you saw that in Revelation. What about Gog? Well, he said he's the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal. Well, there you have it, Tubal and Meshach. Look these words up and you'll see they're all European. So the origins of the children of Japheth are the leaders on the earth at the time of the first return of Messiah. And they are with Asatan leading the earth in the second resurrection. So who are the people that are in power at the top of the pile on the earth today? Because those people are Gog and Magog and Meshach and Tubal. Now, among these people, I want to show you something else. There's a group of people who are calling themselves Ashkenazi Jews. They call themselves I'm not making that up. There's a group of, look that up, Google it. There's a group of people called Ashkenazi Jews. Where do they come from? Let's continue reading. All we need is 2 more verses. And the sons of Gomer, Ashkenaz and Rephath and Togarmah. Well, we only needed 1 verse. Ashkenaz is also Europe. So really, the people that when you speak against them say you're anti-Semitic, it's kind of misleading because their real bloodline is Japhet. That's where they come from. Now, let me be clear. Does it mean all white people are lost? Definitely not. For the Bible says in many places, Old Testament and New Testament, that Gentiles that come to the line of the tribe of Judah and embrace his people are going to be redeemed with his people. But as with the people of the chosen, so with the Gentiles, it's going to be a remnant. You understand? It's not anywhere near the majority. It's going to be a remnant. Matter of fact, let's go back to Ezekiel because he tells us exactly how many of them are going to come to the truth. Let's take a look. And this is Ezekiel chapter 39 again, beginning at verse 1. Again, I'm going to read from verse 1 to 7. I started doing that, but I needed to show y'all who Gog, Magog, Meshach, and Tubal are. Now we know. So let's go from Ezekiel chapter 39 from verse 1 to 7. Therefore, thou son of man, prophesy against Gog and say, thus saith the Most High Yahweh, behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal, and I will turn thee back and leave but the 6th part of thee, and will cause thee to come upon from the north parts. From the north parts, isn't that where Europe is? And will bring thee upon the mountains of Israel. And I will bring you where? Did it say Israel is going to invade them? Or did it say they are going to invade Israel? Again, it's the same principle. We need this for Job. For Ya'al, when we read it, you're going to understand. So there's an invasion of the people from the northern parts of the earth that are coming against Israel. They've always been doing that, both when we sinned against Yah and when we didn't. And they're going to do that at the end. So let's continue. He's going to bring them upon the mountains of Israel, and I will smite thy bow out of thy left hand and cause thy arrows to fall out of thy right hand. You know why? Because the children of Japhet are good with weapons. They got some powerful weapons. Remember what it says in the book of Revelation? That the United States, who is the lamb-like beast, deceives the earth by the miracles that it does in the sight of the beast, and even brings fire upon the earth in the sight of men. It brings fire from the sky. How does the U.S. brings fire from the sky? You know what they're called? Bombs. And the U.S. bombs have been superior, especially we've seen in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I don't care what everybody says about China, about Russia, about whoever. The United States is the power. The Bible shows us it's going to be the power. Its bombs are going to outdo everybody else's bombs. And the Pope is controlling, the Vatican controlling U.S., all things U.S., law, government, business, everything. And the money is being printed by the Ashkenazis. And they're under the control of Rome. Okay? So, but it's telling us here, the weapons are going to be useless. All their bombs won't help them. Their planes won't help them. Their rockets will not help them in the first resurrection. I'm going to knock it out your hand, he said. Not going to help you. They trusted in it, though, Or they love to trust in their guns. Not going to help them. It's not going to help you. Okay, let's continue. Verse 4. Thou shalt fall upon the mountains of Israel, thou and all thy bands, and the people that is with thee. I will give thee to the ravenous birds of every sort and to the beasts of the field. Now, back in verse 2, he did tell us how many of them he's going to save. Did you see that? Did you catch it? In verse 2, he did already say how many he's going to save. Before I answer that, let's read down to verse 7, though. And I will send a fire on Magog and among them that dwell carelessly in the isle, and they shall know that I am Yahweh. So will I make my holy name known in the midst of of my people Israel, and I will not let them pollute my holy name anymore. And the heathen shall know that I am Yahweh, the Holy One in Israel. But in verse 2, he told us how many he's going to save of Gog and Magog that are in the earth. He told us how many he's going to save. Verse 2, let's read it again. He told him, I'm going to turn you back and leave but how much? The sixth part of thee. I'm going to leave the sixth part. 1/6, that's right. So 1/6 of the heathen, that's worldwide. So you're talking about not just Europeans, Asians, right? Hamites, all of those people that are not Israelites. He's going to leave 1/6. Okay, he's going to leave 1/6. Because there's people in every nation and kindred and tongue that's going to cleave to the chosen truth, the truth of the chosen people, and come to this truth. So he's going to save a remnant of them. I'm going to leave a sixth party. That's what he said. So it's not all Caucasian people are going to be lost, but the majority are going to be lost. And all of the leaders of this world, when you see these most powerful men with giving you all their advice on how to get rich and how they make policy and how they control movies and, you know, how they rule from their judge benches, you're seeing the ones that are going to be thrown first into the lake of fire. The leaders. Okay, you're seeing all these religious leaders that want to be big time with their television station and their private jets, and all these people that want to be 501c3 so they could just get paid and not pay taxes. You're seeing the ones that are going to receive the mark in their forehead. You're seeing them. Okay. Takes me to Ezekiel chapter 38. This is the second resurrection. Now, I want you to remember, what did the Most High say in Revelation that we just read about the first resurrection? Blessed and holy is he that part in the first resurrection. On such the second death hath no power. But they shall be priests of Yah and the Messiah, and they shall reign 1,000 years. And it said that that the devil should not come back again until the 1,000 years fulfilled. It says in Isaiah chapter 24, which I also put in the description box, that they're going to be put in their graves, and after many days they shall be visited. That's the language it uses in Isaiah to describe the first and second resurrection. He said they shall be put in their graves, and after many days they shall be visited. That's the second resurrection. So listen, remember that language now. We're going from Ezekiel now 38. I'm going to read from verse 1 down to verse 8. Actually, I'm going to read from 1 to 9. Because remember what it said in the second resurrection about them covering the earth, the breadth of the earth? Watch. Ezekiel chapter 38 from verse 1 to 9. And notice here, he's not going to say, I'm saving the 6 of y'all here. He's not saying that. Okay. And the word of Yahweh came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal, and prophecy against him. And say, Thus saith the Most High Yahweh, Behold, I am against thee, O Gog, chief prince of Meshach and Tubal, and I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, and will bring thee forth, and all thy army, horses, horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords, Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya with them, all of them with shield and helmet, Gomer and all his bands, the house of Togarmah, see, we just read about them, of the north quarters, and all of his bands, and many people with thee. Be thou prepared, and prepare that for thyself, thou and all thy company that are assembled unto thee, and be thou a guard unto them. Watch this, verse 8. After many days thou shalt be visited. In the latter years thou shalt come into the land that is brought back from the sword and gathered out of many people against the mountains of Israel. See, again, they're coming at the Israelites. We are never invading them. They're always coming at us. But when they come at us in these last two times, they're going to have a problem. Okay? Look, which have always been waste, but is brought forth out of the nations, and they shall dwell safely, all of them. Watch verse 9. And thou shalt ascend and come like a storm, and thou shalt be like a cloud to cover the land. See, that's the second resurrection. Like he said, they compassed the camp. They cover the breadth of the earth. See that? Thou and all thy bands and many people with thee. So we're going to come back and visit this again, but I wanted to give you that backdrop of the first and second resurrection, both from what Messiah said, what Revelation taught us, and what Ezekiel taught us, 3 witnesses. And we'll see now in Joel. Now, again, it's important to remember, they're always coming at Israel. They're always coming at us. And that's why, even as we are scattered, are they not always coming at us? Testing 1, 2, 3. When you're as in our scattered state, are they not always coming at us? But so when we get gathered together into the nation, the redeemed, okay, from all the earth. Now, eventually, when this is all over, people are going to scatter back like they did with Noah's 3 sons, except this time it's the kingdom of righteousness. Going to scatter back to all the earth again. But before that, they're going to all be gathered into the promised land as the attack comes, and we're going to prosper in that attack. Okay, but we're not going out to attacking them. They're coming to attacking us. And that's why, again, brothers and sisters, it's a principle always with the Most High. We are counter punchers. We are defensive. We're never the aggressor. We're the counter puncher. So we're never the aggressor. And that's why when it came to me, what wise as serpents and harmless as doves really means, I said, okay, we're the counter punchers. So you come at us, we're going to move and miss it, and then we're going to come back on you. That's the counter punch. You understand? So we don't come out aggressive. We don't come out looking for no trouble. We trying to be cool. But y'all always coming at us. Y'all always coming at us. Satan is always using these people to come at us. And that's going to happen then for their destruction. Okay? So now, when we go to Joel, now let's begin Joel. We're going to, of course, continue tomorrow by the grace of the Most High. But let's start Joel, Ya'al, chapter 1. It starts off with trembling. Trembling because an army is coming against Israel. Trembling because they're going to be punished. And the prophet is crying out to Judah to prepare, to repent. Let's look at it. And they're coming from the north. Let's take a look. Ya'al, chapter 1, beginning at verse 1. Ya'al, chapter 1, beginning at verse 1. I'm going to read verse 1, 2, and 3 to start us off. The word of Yahweh that came to Ya'al, the son of Pethuel. Hear this, ye old men, and give ear, all ye inhabitants of the land. Hath this been in your days, or even in the days of your fathers? Tell ye your children of it, and let your children tell their children, and their children another generation. So it's something that should be passed down from generation to generation by the Israelites, right? Where do you hear the Most High talk through one of his Israelite prophets, who said, remember this and pass it down to your children, your children's children, children. What else did we hear that he wanted us to pass down like that? So generations would go by and they would all know the history. What did he want us to pass down? He wanted us to pass down a few things. In fact, he wanted us to pass down the Passover, right? Moses, right? The Passover with the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Why? Because that's what he delivered our family, our people from Mizraim or Egypt, right? He wanted to pass that down. He wanted us to pass down the day that they stood before the Mount Sinai as a nation, and he thundered the covenant to them. He wanted us to pass that down. See, that wasn't supposed to be something you learned in Sunday school. You're supposed to be in your house, and your Israelite father is supposed to be telling you, our fathers were enslaved in Egypt, and Yahweh delivered our fathers. And then he brought us out to Mount Sinai, and he gave the covenant to the nation of our people. And we're supposed to be obedient to that covenant. That's supposed to be passed down. But we failed to do that, obviously. And now we're awakening, so praise the Most High. We could tell our children now. But here, he's telling you to pass this down. Tell all your children. What? What are you going to tell them? Let's keep reading. Verse 4. That which the palmer worm hath left, hath the locust eaten. That which the locust hath left, hath the cankerworm eaten. And that which the cankerworm hath left, hath the caterpillar eaten. Awake, ye drunkards, and weep. And howl all ye drinkers of wine, because of the new wine, for it is cut off from your mouth. In other words, he wants us to let our children know, not only of what happened in terms of the history of our people being delivered, but what happened in the hard times. What happened? Why are we here? He wants us to tell our children. So he's beginning to speak of a famine-like situation, a situation where everything's going to be dried up and taken. He wants us to tell our children what happened. How many times? You see, I remember I heard Dick Gregory say once. Dick Gregory was a little bit crazy to me. I mean, but I listened to him because every once in a while he spit something that came out that was so powerful. I'll be like, wow. So one day he was talking to people, and he was talking about Black youth in America. And he said, you don't understand why they're going crazy? He said, you don't understand why they wilding out? You don't understand why when you brought them and raised them in church, they tripping out and going crazy and leaving your church? And what did he say? Why? What did he say? He said, you bring them to a building every week with a white Jesus in front of them. And you teaching them that they're oppressor, they got to worship. That's why. How many people would have been relieved of that by understanding our true history? Never mind the kingdoms of Africa. We're not even talking about that. That's when we were forced into Islam. Before that, we got to go back 4,000 years when we were kings, when Judah was kings in the land. When the tribes would come out for war against enemies. When the tribes had prosperity. And each tribe had heads that would lead the tribe. And Israel had a king. That's what we need to be teaching them about. And the reason we got that land, because we were delivered. We came from Abraham and we were delivered from the land of Egypt, from slavery. And he spoke this covenant for only us from Mount Sinai. For 1 million of our people. It was over 1 million of them out there. Y'all say, how do I know it was 1 million? The Bible says there were 600,000 men, not including children. 600,000 men. And even today on the earth, women always outnumber men. And it's getting more narrow because we're at the end, but women always outnumber men. There are always women born before men. So you got to figure there's at least 600,000 women. That's 1.2 million. That's not even including all the kids that was out there. And they wouldn't even count it until they was 5 years old. That's 1.2 million plus that was out there that day. You see, that was 1.2 million people that were out there bearing witness that they heard this thunder, that they heard words clearly in Hebrew, that they heard it so clear and so loud that they sent their princes of the tribes to talk to Moses and say, please tell it to stop. We're scared. Because they heard it. Okay, we were supposed to be telling our children about that. And then they're going to ask, well, what happened? Why are we here in this country? Why are we being overrun now? Why we got to suffer? Why you got to tell me not to be careful when I get pulled over by a cop that I might get killed? Why? Then you could tell them what happened here in Joel chapter 1. You understand? Then you could tell them. This is why we're here. And then they're going to say, well, okay, well, is it going to end? Yes. Then you could talk to them about Deuteronomy chapter 30. You could talk to them about Jeremiah chapter 30. You could talk to them about Ezekiel chapter 36 and 37. And you could show them, yes, there's going to be an awakening. We're going to return to our Father, our Heavenly Father. You could tell them. See, he wants us to repeat these things. But see, we get so confused between the stories of Christianity, the stories of ancient Africa, the stories of all these different stories. And then we have all of these heathen stuff that Indians worshiping one thing. And then you got Haitians worshiping voodoo and everybody worshiping what caused us to get kicked out the land. And nobody understands this history right here. Everybody got something to say about a book they haven't read. Chasing every other book, but the one that has all of our history right in front of us. They're hiding it from us in plain sight. So you want to know why we're in this situation? You want to know what happened? Joel's telling us. Joel's telling us. But he's also going to show us how we're getting out. Remember I tell you, first and second resurrection, it's all in here. But we just getting warmed up. I wanted to just give you all the warm up first. Okay? I want to just give you the start. We're going to continue. I want to continue this by the grace of the Most High on tomorrow. It's now 10:27 my time, 1 hour and 11 minutes. So I'm going to continue this on the morrow. What I've been doing too, some of y'all might have noticed, is I try to once the video is YouTube puts it out there so that I could edit it. I'm not allowed to edit it right away, but once I am, I try to take the commercials out, at least break them down so that there are only a few in there. And then what I'm trying to do recently is break it down by time so that you can see what you can see chapters in the videos. If you look in the description box, it'll take you to whatever. And I have the titles of what I'm going to be talking about in that section of the video. So if you're just interested in that, you can go there. I'm trying to put it in every video. So you may not see it right away. Like I said, I got to get to the point. It gets to the point where it lets me do it. It doesn't let me do it right away. But when I do, I'm able to edit it and put that in there. So you'll see this stuff in that video, and it'll be broken up by what section of the video I'm talking about what. So you can see it, okay? It's in there. And if you have any questions outside of that, please don't hesitate to contact me either by the email, or you can send a message or a comment in the video itself. The email address is also in the description box usually, so you could get it there once I edit everything, and then you can contact me. Okay. I want to thank all y'all for coming tonight and for joining in this Bible study. Praise the Most High Yahweh, that the Spirit has caused you to understand how important these things are that we're studying, man. We're studying together. And so praise the Most High Yahweh. You know, he's spreading this word, but he's given us things now that only we know. That's amazing to me. I'm very overwhelmed by the love that he is showing us and giving us something the rest of the world don't know. And it's so amazing. They hide this book in plain sight from us, and he's hiding the truth. I'm speaking it, and they won't understand it. Now, y'all that are repentant spirit will understand it, but they won't understand it. It'll sound like foolishness to them. It's in plain sight. Isn't that amazing? Well, may the Most High bless you and keep you. May he cause his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. And may he lift up his countenance upon you and give you and your house peace. Shalom. Thank you all. Praise the Most High Yah.